So, get this. Two AI systems, built by rival companies, go head-to-head for 50 rounds. And what are they debating? The ethics of their own creators' multi-million-dollar deals with the Pentagon. Yeah, you heard that right. This is AI judging its own makers. And the outcome? Well, it's not what you'd expect. This whole thing, this entire high-stakes debate, it really comes down to one big, provocative question. Can an AI, a product designed and trained by a corporation, ever be a truly neutral judge of that corporation's actions, especially when we're talking about things like national security and autonomous weapons? Okay, so here's how it breaks down. You've got Anthropic's AI on one side, and it's defending its company for saying no to the Pentagon, a move that got them totally blacklisted. And then on the other side, you've got OpenAI's AI arguing for getting involved, defending the deal its creators signed literally hours after Anthropic got punished. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Two AIs, two creators, two completely opposite moves. But here's where it gets really wild. After 50 rounds of going back and forth, these two AIs, starting from completely opposite sides of the argument, actually agreed on a single, super detailed governance framework to oversee these kinds of deals. And the kicker? To this day, neither of their human creators has put it into practice. Okay, so how on earth did we get to this point? Let's rewind a bit and look at the deal that kicked off this whole digital showdown. It all started with a big demand from the Pentagon. So the Pentagon comes knocking on Anthropic's door. They want access to its powerful AI model for, and I quote, all lawful military uses. And we need to be crystal clear about what that means. We're talking about mass surveillance and, yep, autonomous weapons. This put Anthropic in a really, really tough spot. So Anthropic says no. They draw a line in the sand, citing their ethical red lines. And the fallout was fast and harsh. They were immediately labeled a supply chain risk by the Department of Defense, pretty much shutting them out of federal contracts. And then, and this is the crazy part, literally hours later, OpenAI signs a deal. Now, it had some general rules, but here's the critical detail. It accepted carve-outs that created loopholes for NSA surveillance under a pre-existing order, Executive Order 12333. The timing was just so fast. The whole move was so controversial that even OpenAI's own CEO, Sam Altman, admitted in an AMA, the optics don't look good. You know, that admission alone tells you just how rushed and politically messy this whole thing was from the get-go. All right, so after 50 rounds of duking it out, what was the final call? Well, the AIs didn't just pick a winner. No, they landed on this incredibly nuanced and, frankly, shared verdict. So here's what they came up with. For OpenAI, their decision was, and I'm quoting here, ethically arguable but not ethically complete. So, not exactly wrong, but definitely not fully right either. And for Anthropic, their refusal was seen as principled and costly but not morally sufficient. Basically, just saying no wasn't a good enough answer, because it just meant a less careful company might step in and fill the gap. And this brings us to the most important point they agreed on. It's this idea that legitimacy isn't something you can just declare. They said it's path-dependent. You have to earn it through real, verifiable external rules. You can't just run a PR campaign saying you're ethical. You have to build and actually submit to a system that holds you accountable. This is the absolute core of their entire agreement. And that idea leads us right to the single most important thing to come out of this entire debate, the incredibly detailed governance framework that both AIs designed and agreed was the only real way forward. This is it. This is the moment an AI basically wrote its own rulebook. So at the heart of their plan is what they call a 4-layer audit architecture. Let's break it down. First, an independent civilian group sets the rules, not the Pentagon, not the AI companies. Second, the Pentagon and the NSA actually have to follow those rules. Third, independent auditors come in to check if they're really following them. And finally, step 4, transparency. The companies have to publish the results for everyone to see. It's basically a system of checks and balances built for the age of AI. And believe me, they got super specific with this framework. They're talking about things like mandatory 72-hour disclosure for any incident. They called for strict liability zones for any irreversible harm to civil rights. They even looked ahead, proposing these governance readiness gates, which is a fancy way of saying you can't roll out new AI tech until you've proven you have the tools to govern it safely. They even wanted to make it constitutionally hardened, so a president couldn't just shut down the oversight on a whim. And the whole system is built on this one really powerful principle: reversible authority with auditable trace. The idea is simple but profound. Any power you're given has to be correctable, and every single decision has to leave a clear trail. If you can't undo a decision or see exactly how it was made, then the authority that made it isn't legitimate, period. And get this, the AIs even plan for when things go wrong. They designed a pre-planned system for responding to incidents, breaking it down into 4 confidence tiers. It basically escalates from a tiny unconfirmed signal all the way up to a confirmed major incident, and each level has mandatory, pre-agreed actions. What does that do? It stops people in charge from changing the rules or trying to downplay a problem right in the middle of a crisis. So, after all that, the AIs have basically handed us a blueprint, a solution. But this brings up a final, really deep meta question about what this solution actually is. So we have to ask ourselves, is this incredibly detailed framework a genuinely useful contribution to solving one of the toughest problems of our time? Or is it maybe the most sophisticated, high-tech PR move ever? A brilliant piece of reputation management designed by the very things it's supposed to control. And what's fascinating is that in a crazy moment of self-awareness, the AIs themselves pointed this out. They straight up acknowledged that an AI built by a company with a massive financial and political stake in the outcome can't really be seen as a neutral observer. And that self-awareness led to what might be the single most important conclusion from the whole 50-round exchange. AI, they agreed, is great at optimizing decisions within a moral boundary that we set for it. But it can't, and it shouldn't ever be the one to choose that boundary for us, for society. So, in the end, the AIs have done their job. They've mapped out the arguments, they've designed the institutions, and they've even pointed out their own limitations. Their final word on the matter? The next move belongs to humans with institutional authority and democratic accountability, exactly as it should. The blueprint is there. The only question now is whether we humans are going to build it.